razor cuts. Some of us love them while others despise them. I've had clients actively seek me out because I do razor cuts, while others refuse to let me use one on their hair. I'm Laura, I'm a hairstylist, and in this video, I'm going to talk about why there are such polarizing views on razor cuts, who they're a good candidate for, and in what situations where a razor can actually be damaging to the hair. So before I get too far into this video, I want to talk a little bit about why a razor can be damaging to the hair, because I know that there will be some keyboard warriors out there that are going to start attacking me. Just like anything, razors are good for some people and bad for other people. This is mostly based on your hair type as well as the condition. So just because a razor isn't a good solution for your haircut doesn't mean that it's not good for everyone. And I also want to point out that the stylist using the razor must be properly trained in razor cutting. There are very specific ways to use a razor so that the hair is not damaged. If this is not done properly, the hair can become damaged, split, and frizzy. Okay, so let's go over some of the benefits to using a razor when doing a haircut. Razors are used to add texture, volume, and movement to the hair. The reason they do this is because when the hair is cut at a bevel. So it's cut at an angle instead of perpendicularly. Because of this, the hair has the ability to climb up the other hairs, which can make your hair increase in volume throughout the day. A common question I often receive about razor cuts is it better to cut the hair with a razor or scissors? The answer to this question is both. It depends on what you're going for your haircut. If you're wanting a haircut that's piecey, texturized, has lots of volume and movement, then a razor is likely a good choice. But if you're wanting a super sleek, blunt look, a razor cut is not going to be the best option. The majority of the time, I actually use both a razor and scissors to do a haircut. I'll use the razor in areas where I want to achieve a lot of volume, and I'll use scissors where I want the hair to lay a little bit flatter. This is how you can really customize a haircut based on the tool you're using. So the razor that hairdressers use is called a feather razor. This is very different from clippers or a straight razor like for shaving a beard. Here's an example of one of my feather razors, and I'll put a close-up picture above this screen. But you can see here that there are guards on this razor, so it's impossible to cut myself. I've had some people comment on my videos where I'm doing a razor cut asking how I don't cut myself. I don't cut myself because there is a guard here. That's why this is called a feather razor, because it's impossible to cut yourself with it. Well, maybe not impossible, but it's much harder. Now, this blade gets changed out after every client, or let me rephrase that and say it should be changed out after every client. It's very important that the razor stays extremely sharp because otherwise it can damage the hair. The next thing I want to point out is that a razor should always be used on wet hair, never dry hair. When the hair is dry, the razor can actually frizz the hair, it can catch and pull and cause damage and split ends. So this is why it's extremely important that the hair is fully saturated with water. This means constantly spraying the hair with a water bottle throughout the haircut. This is another reason why it's very important that the stylist is properly trained with razor cutting, because if the hair does not have an even porosity, or if the hair is not evenly wet and saturated with water, it can damage the hair. Okay, now let's talk about who razor cuts are a good option for and who should avoid razor cuts. Razor cuts will work best on healthy hair that is smooth and looking to attain volume. This could be for fine or coarse hair, as well as thick or thin hair. Straight and wavy hair are also good candidates, but not necessarily curly hair, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Since the razor will add volume and texture, any hair that is healthy and looking to add volume will do well with a razor. I also want to point out that shorter haircuts are typically better for razor cuts than long haircuts are. The reason for this is because when the hair becomes long, the main goal in cutting the hair is to trim the split ends. If the hair has split ends, it's not really a good candidate for a razor cut. Shorter cuts are often a little bit piecier and looking to attain volume, and they don't normally have split ends because the hair needs to be cut often in order to maintain its shape. Shorter cuts often need that hair cut at a bevel to attain the volume, whereas longer hair won't necessarily benefit from that as much. Okay, so a list of hair types that will do well with a razor cut are healthy hair, hair looking to add volume, fine hair, coarse hair, thin hair, thick hair, straight hair, wavy hair, and shorter cuts like bobs, pixies, and shags. If you aren't sure what your hair type is, I've linked below my 4-step process in determining your hair texture, density, wave pattern, and condition. Okay, now let's talk about what hair types should avoid razor cuts. So anyone that has curly hair, hair that's frizzy, damaged, or has split ends should avoid a razor cut at all costs. Since razors add volume, hair types that already have too much volume and texture aren't going to benefit from this. As I mentioned earlier, longer cuts also won't benefit from razor cuts because their goal is to remove split ends. And you should never cut split ends with a razor, as this could make it worse. So the hair types that should avoid razor cuts are curly hair, frizzy hair, damaged hair, over-processed hair, hair with split ends, or hair looking to decrease volume, as well as long hair. Okay, so now I want to speak to anyone that has had a bad experience with a razor cut, because I hear you. Getting a bad haircut can be traumatizing, to say it the least. And if the stylist didn't know what they were doing, you can be absolutely butchered with a razor. Majority of the time when razor cuts go wrong, it's because the stylist either didn't wet the hair properly, the hair wasn't a good candidate for a razor cut, and this could be either the hair type or the condition of the hair, or the stylist used the razor to thin out the hair and took chunks out. I personally did not ever use a razor to thin out the hair, and I only used it to cut the ends of the hair with. The reason I didn't like to use a razor for thinning the hair out is because a lot can go wrong. There's a lot more room for error, and it's much easier to take chunks out of the hair when you're using it throughout the hair strand rather than just on the ends. This isn't to say that it can't be done properly, but more than likely, if you had a terrible razor cut and you had chunks taken out of your hair, this is what happened. Personally, I prefer to use my dry texturizing shears for removing bulk throughout the hair strand, but there still are stylists that prefer to use a razor for this. You just have to be really careful at your technique. You have to know exactly what you're doing when you're using a razor, especially for thinning out the hair. This is why it's so important to go to a stylist that has training in razor cuts. If they are not skilled in this, you're more likely to wind up getting butchered. I suggest finding either a salon that specializes in razor cuts, because there are many of those out there, or finding a stylist that offers this as a specialty. Try asking around and getting a referral from somebody that you know that has had good experiences with a stylist with razor cuts. It's not best to guess and go blindly here. You want to get a referral and make sure that you know that you're going to somebody that knows what they're doing. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you have any other questions on razor cuts, leave them for me in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe if you want to make every day a good hair day. Thanks for watching.